It's 2014. Every consumer electronic brand has its own style. The market is flooded with all sorts of gadgets, from full-on home theater systems with multiple speakers to still present compact cameras, including a wide range of super zooms. Indeed, a very exciting and optimistic time for everyday enthusiasts. So it shouldn't be a surprise Samsung introduced a very bold product, or rather a sequel to a bold product, the Galaxy Camera 2 at CES 2014. A slightly updated version with improved internal components.
We have a groundbreaking Galaxy Camera 2, a connected camera that's built on Android that puts pro-like photos in your hands.
It's possibly the best expression of that exciting Frutiger Aero era. Interestingly, at the time many reviewers believed this is the inevitable future of compact cameras. And here I am, 11 years later. Unfortunately, reality had a different plan, and I wish it went the other way. From the perspective of someone who loves tech and cameras, it's kind of sad. It won't be controversial to say smartphones today are extremely boring, identical from one to the other, and there are no new gadgets for people anymore really. Aside from low-cost budget products from China, companies just put AI in everything and release pretty much the same thing every year. All-in-one home theater systems basically gone. Everything got replaced with same generic soundbars. TVs looks the same, tablets and phone the same. Manufacturers choose the safest path possible, focusing only on products with the highest profit. I feel everything less than billions of revenue is cut off. So here I am revisiting the Galaxy Camera 2, not just because it's an icon, but well, there is practically nothing on today's compact camera market anymore. And this is probably one of the last cameras to ever ship with Android. This brings question, is it still usable today? I was curious myself, so I bought one. On the outside, no argue, it holds up really well. The camera still looks refreshingly beautiful. Some might say there is plastic pretending to be metal, but honestly I never understood that criticism, besides durability viewpoint. Here it's no concern though, body is very sturdy. The front is nicely done with glass and touchscreen, albeit PT no AMOLED. The lens barrel is metal and the texture part mimic leather all leave an excellent impression. I have no complaints when it comes to both build quality and design. What could be better on the other hand is the size and ergonomics. It is pretty thin but a bit too wide, so it doesn't really fit well into your pocket like other compacts such as the Sony RX100. The grip also isn't the most comfortable for one-handed shooting. Now, moving to the other big part of this device, the software, I was genuinely surprised at how fast it performs. We are talking about Android 4.3 here. I also own a Galaxy S4 from that era and was fully prepared to see the same sluggish performance. You know, laggy UI, long loading times, typical early Android issues. But to my pleasant surprise, the Galaxy Camera 2 is very snappy. Even startup time and sleep modes are pretty well thought out too. The experience feels more modern than I anticipated. Actually better than some newer compact cameras. Navigating through the user interface is smooth, more so, quite enjoyable. This was back in the days of Touch with Nature UX, at a time when Samsung really paid attention to provide unique, beautiful design. And whenever you agree or not, no argue, compared to today's overly flat One UI, it at least had some character. Browsing the gallery feels great, navigating with gestures like on the phone is fun. Overall, the experience is way more engaging than on many traditional compacts, even those newer. Yes, those may have faster boot times, but in general, UI, I think Samsung nailed it back then. Even today it looks impressive, so that should tell you something. That being said, of course you can't install the latest apps anymore, and web works with limitations. But still, you can do quite a bit. Transfer photos via Bluetooth, which works perfectly fine, loads up some music or videos, or perhaps install some older apps. Sadly, things like weather widgets no longer work, which is a shame. Samsung just abandoned it, and NFC doesn't function anymore either. I tried pairing it with my Galaxy S22 and no go. The protocol just isn't supported nowadays. Still, despite a few modern limitations, I love looking at that interface. It's responsive, it's fluid, and the camera app itself deserves a mention too. It feels very close to what we had on the Galaxy S4, clean, functional, and actually thoughtfully designed, though with some drawbacks like the speeds of switching modes. A physical dial would have solved that issue. Same for lack of physical movie recording button. But most annoying issue is that when zooming, the autofocus sometimes takes a second or two to kick in. There is this slight delay. But all in all, once it gets going, it performs decent. It's not the fastest autofocus in the world, but far from bad as well. We also get optical stabilization here, a big plus, though it's not quite effective as would have seen in some Nikon super zooms on Sony's I've tested before, and certainly not in a video mode. But really, let's get to the heart of the matter, image quality. Here I wonder if this camera actually contributed to mentioned decline of the consumer electronics, more precisely the fall of compact camera market. Now, don't get me wrong, the picture quality is far from bad. Colors are decent. The level of detail is about what you would expect from most compact cameras with 1/2.3-inch sensor. It's just that I feel like they missed the opportunity to showcase what first true smart camera could do. Not only when it comes to gimmicks, but directly the performance, not introducing more advanced computational photography here. Instead, it was smartphones that got all these features shortly afterward, not the one camera where those innovations arguably should have debuted. The best proof of how they undermined its potential. The Galaxy Camera 2 didn't even get 4K video recording option while it was built to the Galaxy S5 released a month earlier. Okay, but you might be thinking I'm about to keep complaining the whole time and saying this device is pointless, but that's not the case. I actually think the camera is still worth talking about, perhaps even more so nowadays in 2025, in a market where there is basically nothing new or exciting. I bought one for myself because, among others, I got tired of keeping all my photos on a smartphone and, more importantly, kind of missed having zoom again after selling my Nikon B700 a few years ago, and this small guy has 20 times optical zoom. With that, you can really take some cool stills, do bird or moon photography with a beautiful bokeh. Depth of field comes out really great sometimes, so you get that artistic look. And just take a look at this comparison with the hybrid digital zoom on the latest Galaxy S25. The moonshot says it all. The Galaxy Camera 2 with its physical optics still comes out clearly ahead. And pause for a minute, imagine the possibilities if camera manufacturers had adopted even a fraction of what modern Android could offer. Now, objectively speaking, the optics here aren't groundbreaking. You will notice some edge distortions at wide angles and some softness at the long end of the focal length. But overall, for a compact camera with these features, I find the results to be more than acceptable. I've just come to terms with the fact that the Galaxy Camera 2 doesn't need to be the best camera, period. It has better zoom than any modern smartphone, and for me, that's enough. As I mentioned, the colors are quite pleasant, saturated but in a fairly restrained way for Samsung. Compared to Galaxy smartphones of that era, the look here is even a bit more flat. I even did the comparison with the Galaxy S4 to picture that, and I think that difference is visible in most shots. This was still before the era of ultra-fast auto HDR, so what we get here is a slow HDR mode similar to what was on the S4. Don't expect results anywhere near what modern phones can do in highlights and shadows, and that is probably the biggest difference you will notice in daytime photography. But is it really a bad thing? Correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't we all a bit tired of this artificial overprocessed look modern smartphones often produce? Just take this sunset shot I captured with the Galaxy 4 actually 10 years ago. At this point, I would prefer seeing improvements in dynamic range through better hardware, not overly sugary image processing. Don't get me wrong, the S25 is better in many cases, and I'm not against computational photography at all. I just personally prefer something in between, something closer to the calm, realistic image from years ago. In current overstimulated state of the world, it actually feels refreshing, and you might have seen this niche trend nowadays of people getting into those old compact cameras for this exact reason. By the way, whereas I'm not surprised Samsung abandoned the Galaxy camera line and didn't bring any of the newer features to it, I'm a bit surprised the modding community hasn't tried to port advanced computational photography techniques onto this device yet. I can't think of a better opportunity to revive older camera than this. Looking again at these photos from the S25, the S4 and the GC200, I have to say the Galaxy S4 was honestly a breakthrough back in the 2013. It had arguably the best camera of any smartphone at the time, and as you can see in some macro shots here, even now the detail and sharpness hold up surprisingly well, in some cases even outperforming the Galaxy Camera 2. That said, I have to be fair, the S4 has a single fixed focal length and a rather narrow field of view. Meanwhile, the Galaxy Camera 2 gives you this full 20 times optical zoom that alone is a huge difference. Also, it's not like the Galaxy Camera 2 performed worse than flagship smartphones of its time. Quite the opposite. We are talking about 1/2.3 inch sensor versus the S4's 1/3 inch sensor, meaning it gathers more light. Add optical stabilization to that, and it handles low light far better. Even in daylight, the S4 struggled with motion blur, whereas the Galaxy Camera 2 handled those situations much better. You can clearly see this in detail and sharpness. As you can see in these comparison shots, the Galaxy Camera 2 shows less noise and produces noticeably brighter images. I'm not saying it's perfect, but again performs similarly to most compact cameras with similar sensor at the time. With that, you can't expect anything close to modern night mode performance. Even though technically the Galaxy Camera 2 does have a night mode, it's nothing like what we see on the Galaxy S25 for example. The results are pretty mediocre, especially with scenes where there is barely any light. And while you could argue that HDR and advanced night mode didn't really take off until 3 or 4 years later after its debut, I still think that lack of 4K video recording can't be justified. Some footage come out looking nice and even a bit artistic thanks to that lens bokeh. Color-wise, videos look okay, pretty neutral overall, but stabilization, autofocus and sharpness are definitely lagging behind by today's standards and probably lagged even back then. So I can't really recommend this camera for video unless it's occasional or just for an emergency use, as I will be doing personally. In summary, would I recommend buying this camera today? Well, if you're a camera and tech enthusiast like myself, it's a really interesting device, a charming relic or even an icon, I would say, of generally more interesting era in technology. If you love super zoom capabilities, it's worth considering too. A 21 times zoom packed into a small body combined with all of those features and a smooth responsive interface for what I paid, which is €95, is actually a really nice deal, even for a backup camera to your phone. However, if your priority is pure image or video quality, it's obviously better to look at alternatives with larger sensors, such as the Canon G7X, Sony Ericsson 100, or maybe even Canon PowerShot S120, or even some mirrorless or DSLR. Objectively speaking, all of them will outperform it. That said, my recommendations for general publics could change if the modding community, perhaps I hope inspired by this video, began working on bringing modern computational photography to the Galaxy camera. Will that happen? And perhaps it's partly nostalgia, but will those optimistic, diverse time for tech and not only come back too? I guess time will tell. Thank you very much for watching and hearing my thoughts. This was a bit different than usual, but I felt this rant needed to be made. See you in the next one. Peace.